Hello, BookTube. Well, it's a bleak and barren Sunday here at Hyde Cottage. And those of you who watch this channel for any length of time will know what that means. That means a day when there is no mail. When there are no new books being delivered to Steve. And I have to find some other way to occupy myself. Today it's not hard. I have a lot of writing to do today, and a lot of reading, and even some Skyping. But in addition to that, I always console myself with a tag on bleak and barren Sundays, and today is no exception. I found a tag that fits perfectly the feel of the the world outside, where the summer is noticeably ending. Even when the middle of the day is warm and humid, you can still feel it. You can feel autumn just underneath everything, and at night you certainly can. You can certainly feel that the heat that generated during the day is going away right away when the sun goes down. So I found a book tag that fits that, called the End of Summer book tag. Not to be confused with the summer book tag, which I did a year ago. I had to check to make sure, and I went back and looked at that video, and there are my girls sleeping on the floor together, and it's I hadn't realized, I hadn't anticipated what the cumulative effect of time would be on these videos. That these are not just entertaining things for me to do and hopefully for you to watch, but also a record. Uh, Very weird, very strange. But this isn't that tag. This is a year later, and was created by simply a book lover, and it specifically deals not just with summer but with the end of summer, and it's grouped around the idea of returning to school, because I think simply a book lover is extremely young, and probably a lot of booktubers are, and are facing the prospect of going back to school of some kind. Uh, uh, and the first question is summer camp. What book has your new favorite character? I read a lot of books this summer. In Once September starts, I will do the actual math. But I think the number one new character that I met in terms of fiction this summer was Maud Avery, who is the adoptive mother of the main character in John Boyne's novel The Heart's Invisible Furies, and she's a fascinating creation. One of those secondary fictional characters in a novel who are so compelling, and yet you know they wouldn't be able to command a book on their own. She's oblivious and distant. She's a compulsive novelist. Just turns out a novel every year, and when we first meet her, um, her husband is ironic about the fact that no one ever notices that she's doing that. She works on her novels all the time and drops one regularly like clockwork every year, and yet the public scarcely seems to notice. And that's perfectly fine with her. She thinks that popularity would be in horrible bad taste. And it's an ongoing note of irony throughout the book that as time goes on for the main character, her adopted son, her reputation just grows and grows until by the end of the book she is an absolute literary icon long after she's dead. And something about her just sticks with me. Of all the fictional characters I read this summer, she's probably my favorite. Question number two: summer vacation. What was your favorite book? Uh, that's that's not easy for me. I've read a lot of books this summer, and as usual, of course, this being book two, the question means fiction. It might even mean YA fiction. But I can't just leave it at one book. So I came up with two, fiction and nonfiction. At the very least, that's what I can do. And for this summer, for the months of high summer, I think that fiction would be Less by Andrew Sean Grier, a novel I think I've mentioned on this channel before that basically follows this has-been writer as he tries to rekindle his life, and doesn't particularly have a plot. It tries to scrape together one, but its main joys are just how exuberant a story it is on every page. I just loved it. And favorite nonfiction, there's a lot of competition here, but the number one spot I think would have to go to Behave by Bob Sapolsky, which is another book that I've mentioned on this channel before. An enormous compendium of a study of human behavior that is incredibly evocative. It reminded me constantly of books like The Ancestor's Tale by Richard Dawkins, where there's something genuinely thought-provoking on every single page. That's amazing when a book is teaching me that much. And this one did, so I highly recommend it. And then question number three is Summer Rain. What was your least favorite book? Just before we get to the books, I should put in a note of defense for Summer Rain. I don't see anything disappointing about it. It's one of the most beautiful things in life, and it scarcely happened at all in Boston this summer. This summer was unbelievably mild in Boston. A few humid days, a few hot days. I don't think the temperature reached triple digits even once from June, July, and August. And as far as rains go, as far as bad storms, there were none. But anyway, let's see here. What was your least favorite book? Again, I'm going to break it up into fiction and nonfiction. And for fiction, it's something I showed you on this channel. But I did actually sit down and try to read it. And it was just, it's an incomprehensible decision to me. It was that new, admittedly pretty, hardcover Scribner reprint of the short stories of Hemingway that contains the editorial strike-throughs all throughout the volume. I find Hemingway's stories a bit difficult to take seriously anyway, even in a prime, clean, pristine state. But with editorial strike-throughs through them, I honestly don't see how... I tried to sit down and read it, and I don't see how that's possible. It was... by the time I was done, by the time I gave up, it struck me as just the most colossal, annoying waste of paper to do such an exercise. I just don't get it. I don't understand why, aside from Hemingway completists, I don't understand why you would make such a volume that is literally unreadable, physically unreadable. And in terms of nonfiction, there were a lot of candidates. This summer saw a book, I think we saw it on this channel, about how, yes, we live in an age of incredible mass extinction, but look on the bright side. There are some new species developing. Or there was another book, I didn't include it because it's a September release, and I'm not sure that we're counting September as summer. But there was another book from a major publishing house laying out the case for intelligent design instead of evolution and creation by natural processes. And of course, the intelligent design is by one deity of the 10 million deities that have existed in human history. And the design, the intelligent design in question, at the end of this book that has charts and graphs and a bibliography full of science references, at the end of the day, the intelligent design involved is magic. but against all of that competition, I think the number one most disappointing, most annoying, worst nonfiction work is also infamous. It's Dangerous, the book that ended up being called Dangerous, by Milo Yiannopolous, who was once a racist, sexist provocateur, a professional troll is what he called himself, on Twitter and at Breitbart, was sacked from Breitbart, was sacked from Twitter, and the original book deal that he had for this book, which had a slightly different title, was also canceled. And somebody, of course, swooped in and published the book, and it's dangerous, but not in the way that its idiot author thinks. I really wish, after I read this book, from the first loathsome page to the end, this is serious subject matter being fumbled and emojied and Snapchatted by a moron who knows how to simulate not being a moron. And there's nothing more dangerous than that. And by the time I got to the end of the book, all I wanted, this guy doesn't care about anything except fame. He doesn't care about the subjects that he's writing about in his book. He doesn't care about any other subject that might cross his tiny little precious mind. What I really wanted by the end of the book was for him to just, somebody to just come along and get him out of public life. There's a number that you need to write on a check that would do that. Nothing would do that with a dedicated public intellectual, but with this kid, there's a number. And I'd be willing to bet it's not an excessive number. And I'd be willing to bet that if somebody came along and did that, we'd never hear from him again. And I would like that to happen. I don't want another book by Milo Yiannopolous. And I have a feeling that instead of getting that, what I'm going to get is a lifetime of this guy being considered a pundit. I do not recommend the book. Where were we here? Question number 4, Last Days of Summer, a book you wish you'd read this summer. And I believe it or not, no matter how much I read, I do have regrets like that. And one of the ones that comes to mind when I was thinking about this question was Daryl Gregory's big book, Spoonbenders, which is it looked to me like it was a kind of mashup of rom-com and sort of edge of reality psychic fiction. It's about a fraudulent psychic who meets and falls in love with the real thing, and a lot of the moving parts of that premise struck me as just awful. But the feel of the book was good. My instincts about the book, regardless of the premise, were good, and I haven't got to it yet. It came out months ago, I think, and I've had it longer than that. I've had it since it was winter, but I haven't got to it yet, and I keep meaning to. But with my reading the way it is now, if a book slips and falls behind, I tend not to turn around and get back to it because there's so many more things to read. But by the time the year is over, I want to make a conscious effort to go back and read Spoonbenders, just in case my instincts were right. Uh, let's see here. Question number 5: assigned summer reading, a favorite classic. I'm assuming this means a favorite classic that you encountered this summer. And oh boy, do I have a candidate! I have praised it on this channel before. I have praised it in a review. I will go on praising it. It is Leslie Klinger's new annotated edition of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, in a big, gorgeous green and black hardcover that I cannot praise it highly enough. It is so much fun. That I want to leave it at that. Although that is not, believe it or not, the last time that Leslie Klinger's name will come up in this tag. But we'll give it a rest for a minute. But I've recommended the new annotated Frankenstein before, and I'll list all these things down below. But you really, if you're a fan of the book, you really need this edition of it. Let's see here. Question number 6: back to school shopping. Favorite book you obtained this summer? I don't know exactly when this comes out. I think it might be coming out this month or next month. But it it certainly pleased me the most. It's the only one that I have a physical copy of here. It's this creepy pair of underwear. And this is it's written by Aaron Reynolds and it's drawn by Peter Brown, and it involves a little rabbit named Jasper who thinks that he's old enough not to need new underwear. This is actually the second children's underwear epic that that I have read this summer and enjoyed. This is even better than Monsters New Undies, because in this case the underwear is evil. It's haunted, and Jasper originally he spends most of the book trying to get rid of it. Puts it in the bottom of a sock drawer, puts it in another part of the house, buries it, and none of that works. Of course, as you know, if you've ever had supernatural underwear, none of that is going to work. And the end result, the end of the book, the conclusion, the solution that Jasper comes up with is just wonderful. If you have kids who are becoming interested in what is going to turn out to be their lifelong relationship with their undies, this is a book to get. But if also, like Deb, you yourself have had a problematic lifelong relationship with underwear, then do yourself a favor. Go to the kids section of your Barnes & Noble and buy a copy of the book, because it's delightful. Let's see here. Question number 7. First day of school. The first book you plan to read this school year. And I checked, and in Boston, the school year actually began on August 23rd. So I would already have read the first book that I'm going to read this school year. And I would have all of these, or I would have the iPad to show you the covers, but I have a sweet old dog who's sound asleep right next to me. She can't hear a thing, so she can't hear me talking to you. But if I move, if I get up, she will wake up. And her peace is the entire coin of the realm of my life right now, so I don't want to disturb her. And I have a feeling that most of you will understand that. So I don't have books to show you, but I can talk about them, and I'll annotate them down below. And the first book that I read after August 23rd that I truly loved and that I highly recommend to everyone else has a long title, so I'm going to read it. The People Are Going to Rise Up Like Water Upon Your Shore. It's by Jared Yates Sexton. And it's a dissection of the 2017 U.S. presidential election. And the reason that I'm recommending it not just to Americans, but to everybody, is because the result of that 2017 presidential election is going to affect you no matter where you live in the world. uh, in negative ways. So understanding to the best possible extent that it can be understood what actually happened during that presidential campaign is really important historically. And this guy, he's young. He's very young. I found him on social media, and he does an incredible job. The book that it reminded me of was What It Takes by Richard Ben Kramer, who's 3 times his age. It's a classic of American political reportage. I strongly recommend it, no matter where you stand on the spectrum of about your opinions on America's racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron president. No matter where you stand on the spectrum of this historic and dangerous embarrassment, this book doesn't play favorites. I myself have hated the current U.S. president for 35 years, so I wanted it to play favorites. Just like in What It Takes, I wanted that to play favorites too. But no, it's better than that. The book is better than that. So I learned a lot, and I loved it, and I strongly recommend it. And that is the first book that I read in the school year, according to the Boston calendar. And then question number 8, the last question, is favorite subjects. What new releases are you most anticipating? And of course, the minute I started thinking about this, answers came swarming in, because new releases for the rest of the year are all I'm thinking about. I made a list of some of them, and I will list them down below. Let's see here. The first one is probably going to be that horrible word that was coined just recently in American politics, a nothing burger. But I'm going to read it anyway, just on the chance that it's not. It's Gary Burns' book, Secrets of the Secret Service, in which he talks about the current state of affairs in the Secret Service, the burdens and the challenges that they face, and also raises the question of whether or not the Secret Service can continue, whether or not the burdens that are being placed on it are actually outside of its ability to cope with. Some of that, admittedly from a distance, strikes me as Pollyanna. In the last 6 or 7 years, most of the major problems that have been faced in the media and in the real world by the Secret Service have been self-inflicted. So I'll be interested in reading the book, but I'll be watchful that it isn't just Cry Me a River. I want it to be, even-handed and fairly squinty-eyed. Then the next one is a gigantic comic book omnibus. It's Justice League, the Detroit era, which most of you won't know what I'm talking about, but the Justice League is, of course, going to be hot property for DC Comics because of the upcoming movie. And as a result, they're flushing out everything reprint-wise that they have. And this is going to be a big deluxe hardcover edition of a disastrous chapter in Justice League history, in which almost all of the major members of the team leave, and they leave the team under the leadership of Aquaman, who decides to relocate its base to a warehouse in Detroit, in the inner city. It was Jerry Conway's idea. If you Wikipedia him or Google him, you will see why. He's been responsible in comic book history for some true gems and also for some true stinkeroos. And this is a stinkeroo of such epic magnitude that it almost counts as a classic. And these issues, I would have assumed, would never be reprinted. I would assume that every self-respecting comic book fan is deeply embarrassed by them, because in addition to Aquaman moving a super team into a Detroit warehouse in the middle of the city, he also starts taking advice from stereotypes left, right, and center. The wise old neighborhood black lady, and the team starts to be populated with stereotypes as well. There's a gypsy character. There's a token Latino character. there's a token young Republican who wears a flag and is made of metal. It's I had a feeling this was coming here. You want to turn all the way around? Yeah, I get you. Here you go. Let's turn all the way around. Otherwise, you're going to be down on the ground. There you go. Okay. And I remember these issues from when they first came out, because I was buying them in utter disbelief, appalled disbelief. What have you done with my team? I said over and over again, perhaps out loud to my beagles. And there are a couple of scenes. Jerry Conway can't write a truly worthless comic book. So there are a couple of scenes that are very interesting. And not enough to spend $125 on the thing, but if DC will send me a copy, I will definitely write about it. And then the next one is A book that I mentioned on this channel before, The Last Man Who Knew Everything, David Schwartz's new biography of Enrico Fermi, which I have but have not read yet. So I'm looking forward to it. Of course, the title is nonsense. It's meant to play into the public conception that scientists are somehow dealing deeper knowledge than all the rest of us. I guarantee you Enrico Fermi did not know anything about the sonnets of Shakespeare. And I also guarantee you the sonnets of Shakespeare are every bit as interesting, every bit as important as what he did know about. But title notwithstanding, I'm fascinated by the book, so I can't wait to get to it. Then it's Leslie Klinger again. the Leslie Klinger did the annotated Frankenstein, and I'm amazed to say this. I didn't see it coming, but later in the year, Leslie Klinger is also coming out with an annotated version of The Watchmen, the classic DC graphic novel, The Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Is coming out in an annotated edition. I don't even know how that's going to work. Will the artwork be part of the page, reduced in scale with the annotations on the side? Will the annotations be down below to give the artwork all the real estate that it needs? I can't wait to see it. It's also coming out from DC, and I'm also hoping that they'll send that to me for nothing. Then there's a big opulent art book called The Grand Tour coming out from Taschen that's all about travel before the modern era, and it looks just incredible. And every once in a great while, Taschen will actually send me a book that I request. Depends on which publicist I get. So I'm going to give it a try. But if you see it, we'll be seeing it together in bookstores, because I still go to bookstores. I still look at these things. But I can't wait. I don't think that I will spend the price tag to buy it, but I would love to read it and review it. Then the next one is something I've mentioned on this channel before, The Dawn Watch by Maya Jasanoff. She's a historian that I really, really like. And The Dawn Watch is her new book, forthcoming, about Joseph Conrad, who's an author I've never liked. So to me, that's just catnip. If a really smart, really good writer who I've always loved takes up a subject that I've never liked, then there's a chance that my whole thinking about that subject will undergo some sort of seismic event, which is so exciting. Imagine rereading all of Conrad with new eyes. That would be incredible. So I can't wait to read the book. Then some fiction to wrap things up because this video is going along. The first one is the new John Banville, Mrs. Osmond. Don't know anything about it. Of course, Banville is an author you have to read. So I will read it. I've read everything else that he's written, and based on everything else that he's written, I'm really hoping that the stars don't align for me reviewing Mrs. Osmond, because he's usually struck me as an incredibly boring author. And if this book is boring, I'd rather not write about it. Thanks very much. The next one is science fiction. It's The Spark by David Drake, the great David Drake, who specializes in military science fiction. And this apparently is a standalone novel, not part of any of the ongoing series that he's doing. And that's great. I actually think this author excels in standalone novels and doesn't quite in extended series. He has his fans, and they exist in sufficient numbers so that he will never want for work. But a new standalone novel by him, I greatly welcome. I'm looking forward to it. And then the last one will end on a summary note, even though the summer is ending in this tag. And that's No Other Duke Will Do by Grace Burrows. It's a Regency romance, and she's just delightful. Specializes in humor, and specializes in slow burn humor. Unlike a lot of the titillating jokes in a lot of modern Regency romances, she's good at setting up a joke that plays off over pages or even chapters. That's not so common in modern Regency romance authors, and I love it. I think I've never seen her fail at it. So I'll be looking forward to that. And that's it. That is the end of summer book tag. And all that's left for me to do is tag people, and I tag all of my usuals. I tag all of my usuals except the usuals who are in Australia, where I gather it is not summer. I've never been to Australia, so I'm assuming that you do even the seasons differently. But I will list down below all the people that I tag, because there's some new names that I want to add. But in the meantime, that's it. That is the end of summer book tag for this end of summer bleak and barren Sunday. It's a little warm outside, and as you saw, my senior citizen is slowly waking up. So I will now help her off the couch, and then I will massage her back legs until what little blood is flowing into them flows into them so that she can actually walk. And then I will walk her out into the kitchen, and then I will help her down the back step, and then I will help her down the driveway. And then when we're on level ground on the sidewalk, and she's just standing there feeling the wind, I will help her to the nearest patch of ground and see what she feels like doing, and I'll help her with that as well. But I've got to go do that now. So this is perfect timing, and I will see you soon. Sorry about the length, book two, but you're my only company aside from her on this day. So I'll see you soon. Thank you.